let's just dive right into it. Number 7, Penn State at number 3, Ohio State. The Buckeyes are 4.5-point home favorites, and this game carries an over-under of 46.5. Had to double-check that one. Well, when's the last time we saw an Ohio State game with a 46.5-point total here? Kicks off at noon on Fox, which is a travesty, but hey, that's what we've been dealing with the past few years. Weather stuff, potential rain and breezy winds, we're talking 10 to 15 miles an hour, are expected here in Columbus, at least up here in Cleveland. It's going to be a washout, so maybe that'll get down there as well. Just keep an eye on the weather. Maybe that's why the under has taken a hit. Tuesday night into Wednesday, it dropped from 48 down to 46.5. Health stuff, I need updates on Trevion Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, and Mayan Williams. All three missed last week, and I think it matters a whole lot more this week if they don't play than when Ohio State was taking on Purdue. I'm actually most concerned, I think, about Egbuka. I know Trevion Henderson may be the knee-jerk reaction to say, hey, if he comes back, that's the X factor. I think it's Emeka Egbuka, because if the backs can't go, Ohio State can at least use Dallin Hayden. That may burn his redshirt opportunity, but he's very explosive, although the team does want him for the future. Right off the bat, my biggest concern with Ohio State, Penn State's pass rush versus Ohio State's tackles. Josh Gibbons still not up to snuff. He's going to have to go against names like Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter, some of the better pass rushers in the entire Big Ten. Kyle McCord is coming off his best game of the year, which is great. Not just statistically, but he looked better. I can understand that they're playing Purdue's defense. I can separate that and just look at what McCord is doing well this week versus last week's. I think this was his best game by far. He's a lot better with time to throw. Will he have time to throw? I don't know. Depends how aggressive Manny Diaz decides to be on Saturday. The offense starts clicking when they target Marvin Harrison Jr. Of course, I don't have to tell you that. He's the best player on the field. But he may see a fair share of Kalen King, who's a preseason All-American corner for Penn State. On the other side, we all saw that presser with James Franklin when he was asked about not throwing the ball downfield, but there is a little bit of truth to it. Drew Aller's ADOT is the lowest in the Big Ten. It's honestly kind of inexcusable. A lot of quick game. They're getting the ball out of his hands, making it easy for him. I do like that for a first-time starter, but I don't get it with the 5-star. Risk adverse with one of the most talented quarterback prospects Penn State's ever had? I don't know. Not my style. But who am I to criticize here? Penn State's going to line up and try to run the football with Nick Singleton and Katrin Allen. The Buckeyes are 13th, though, in rushing success rate allowed on the season. But if you watch the Notre Dame game, that front did get pushed around a little bit by Notre Dame's offensive line, and I think Penn State's offensive line is just as good as Notre Dame's. The secondary has improved a lot for Ohio State. Last year was a liability. This year it's a strength. I don't know if you saw The Athletic put out a report about an anonymous coach saying the secondary sucks and that's the issue. They must be looking at last year's tape because that is not the case this year by any stretch of the imagination. But Penn State does get the other Kent State corner, Cephas, the receiver. He is the X factor for Penn State.
Yeah, Brett, this game, I've got a lot to say. I'm going to start with the watchability score here. It's a 9.9 out of 10. Woo. This is the number 1 game of the week for me. It is the number 2 game of the entire regular season behind only Ohio State at Michigan. As a college football fan who considers the regular season to be sacred, I could not be more excited for this game. But Brett, as an Ohio State fan, I couldn't be more nervous for this game at the exact same time, man. Before we dive into the predictive outlook, just a quick look at these resumes because they're both really, really good. Ohio State's number 4 in the most deserving rankings. There's only a 17% chance that the average top 25 FBS team would be undefeated against the Buckeyes schedule. And Ohio State's outscoring their opponents by 13 points per game more than would be expected of the average top 25 FBS team. On the other side, Penn State's number 10 in the most deserving rankings. I know Nittany Lion fans they're a little hot about that. They think they should be ranked a little bit higher. Let me get to that in 1 second. Nittany Lions number 11 in record achievement. They're number 2 in relative scoring margin. They're outscoring their opponents by 16.2 points per game more than would be expected of the average top 25 FBS team against the Nittany Lions schedule. That's a mark exceeded only by Oklahoma's 18.2 points per game more. I said Nittany Lion fans are mad at me. Hey, get in line, Nittany Lion fans. Here's the good news. No team has a bigger chance to improve its resume with a win this week than Penn State. There's only an 18% chance that the average top 25 team would be expected to win in Columbus this weekend, making it the number 1 biggest resume boost opportunity of the week for Penn State.
And Kelly, I want to jump in really quick because I've seen a lot of, well, what does that mean? What's expected? How do you know that? if you doubt the numbers that Kelly's giving to you right now, all you have to do is go look at the ATS records and see how much they're outscoring those opponents by the spread. Oklahoma's number 1 in the country, exceeding spread expectations each and every week. I just wanted to give a little bit more of a concrete, an alley-oop to you there, because I've seen a lot of people kind of questioning, like, well, where are these numbers coming from? Data, guys, that's where it's coming from.
For those that have questions about the numbers and their validity, feel free to shoot me a note. I can explain to you kind of what it's backed in, why we like it, and its track record. Summary, the model's performing very, very well this year. I have a lot of faith in what the data is showing. No model's perfect, including mine, and no model tells the full story, including mine. It takes more than just a model, but the model gives us a really good starting point, and so that's how I like to kind of anchor my analysis. You all as fans can build from there. Speaking of the model, we'll talk about the predictive stuff now because all the resumes are great and that's fun to talk about. And I actually enjoy that probably more as a talking point. But if we're talking about picking this game and trying to break it down, none of that matters because all that matters is the predictive aspect. My numbers make it Ohio State minus 4.5. Sounds familiar. Didn't you say that was what the Vegas line was? Okay, anyway, my numbers make it Ohio State minus 4.5. It's a 62% win expectancy for the Buckeyes. For the 5th straight week, Ohio State is number 1 in my power ratings. The defense is a season best number 4 now, while the offense is currently number 9. Brett, Kyle McCord in that offense, they need to be ready. This is the best opposing defense that the Buckeyes will face all season based on my current numbers. And for Penn State, with a K Ford rating of 24.9, this is the highest I've had the Nittany Lions power rated all season. They're currently number 4 overall with a season best number 2 defense and the number 21 offense in the country by my numbers. The defenses should have the advantage on both sides of the ball in this one, as I just outlined. But the difference for me is the number 21 Penn State offense. That's the only unit in this game ranked outside the top 10 nationally. Plus, this game is in Columbus. This game has absolutely massive Big Ten East and college football playoff implications. Currently, Ohio State has a 37% chance to make it to the Big Ten championship and a 36% chance to make it to the CFP, all of this by my numbers. With a win, those numbers jump to a 53% and 58% respectively. A loss, though, Ohio State's chances fall to just 11% to make it to Indy and 3% to make the CFP. Absolutely huge swing for the Buckeyes. No different for Penn State. Currently, Nittany Lions have a 30% chance to make it the Big Ten championship game, 26% chance to make the CFP. A win bumps those up to 56% and 62%. Both of those ceilings are higher than Ohio State. So if a Penn State wins, their chances to make both of those games, both of those events, greater than Ohio State's with a win. With a loss, Penn State's chances fall to 14% to win the East and 5% to make the CFP. Just massive leverage on both of those fronts, as expected, when you've had these two teams on a collision course since the beginning of the year. Bottom line, I have Ohio State minus 4.5, 38% chance Penn State earns their first win against the Buckeyes since 2016 and their first win in Columbus since 2011.
I know it's popular right now to say both of these offenses stink, but that's just not the case. I know you said they're number 9, number 21. To me, there's really no reason Penn State should be number 21. They have the talent to be a top 10 offense in the country. They just don't use it right. I don't know. Is that going to change this week? If there's a week for it to change, yeah, it should be this one. And in my opinion, if you're going to back Penn State, just take them to win outright. Otherwise, this feels like an Ohio State cover at home. I couldn't wrap this up without mentioning James Franklin's track record, because that's really what my entire handicap of this game kind of is predicated on. He's 1-8 against Ohio State. Come on, we see it each and every year. He covers the spreads because he's aware of them against Northwestern and Indiana's and those teams. But when it comes to the big games against Ohio State and Michigan, just like, he's not getting it done.
Yeah, no doubt, Brett. I mean, I was going to let it go, but then when you said, I can't get out of here without mentioning James Franklin's track record, and that's fair. I'm totally with you. I just told you what my numbers say, and my numbers are back in Ohio State minus 4.5. So I'm not expecting an Ohio State win, or excuse me, a Penn State win. 38% chance for Penn State. That's what the model says. I just want folks to remember, myself included, there was a time not too long ago when that was the narrative with Jim Harbaugh too, is, hey, he's winning all the other games, but he's not beating Ohio State, and it was Michigan State, ironically, that he could not beat. Now, he can't lose to those teams, as it turns out. And so we'll see. At some point, the odds, the law of averages say James Franklin's going to flip this narrative around. Maybe he never does. There are certain coaches. I mean, I think back to the Ohio State, Michigan, for example. Cooper, he beat everybody and he couldn't beat Michigan. He never did, and that's just the way it went. So there are coaches who never figure it out, but I feel like more times than not, we have this narrative, oh, he can't win this one, he can't win that one. Eventually that turns, and in the case of Harbaugh, it turned hard, and it hasn't turned back yet. So just keep that in mind, too, as we're thinking about Franklin and his track record, because I don't dispute what it's been, but it can change, and it can change like that. Because they've had some close calls against the Buckeyes, as you know.
Yeah, it certainly can. But is in Columbus with a still top 3 or 4 Ohio State team the year that they do it? Yeah, maybe. I'm certainly not counting it out. And, I really do think I lean Ohio State with the points. I'm going to wait and see what kind of Penn State money comes in later in the week, because late week money tells the story about where the market's at. And because we're at 4.5 right now, I know open 5.5. Those are dead numbers. That movement is peanuts when you're talking about significance in the market.
I know we joked, Brett, about we needed a separate hour-long breakdown of this game. We almost got there, actually, but I feel really good about it, man. This game is so exciting. I can't get over my excitement, even for a neutral college football fan. It's how I felt about Washington, Oregon last week. Those aren't my teams. If they win or lose, turned out to be a great game. I hope this one turns out to be the same.